Welcome to the official podcast of FOR ETERNIA.com. We have the power. I'm your host, AJ, and today's episode is titled, She Was a Good Hire. A line spoken by King Randor to Duncan about recruiting the character named ANDRA in the Masters of the Universe Revelation episode comes with everything you see here. That perhaps best encapsulates the guest we have here today. Because not only did this guest deliver an amazing, memorable performance full of wonder and joy as the character ANDRA in both Netflix animated series Masters of the Universe Revelation and Revolution, and not only has she become a great advocate for the franchise, and originally was a fan when she was younger, but our guest is now creating new content in this universe we love in the form of Masters of the Universe ANDRA, a one-shot comic book coming out from Dark Horse Comics early this July. How awesome is that? So you know her, you love her. We are very excited to welcome on the one and only Tiffany Smith. Tiffany, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. It's always like so fun, but also so awkward listening to intros because I'm like, oh my God, like it's just like embarrassing.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to embarrass you some more because, you know, your reputation precedes you, meaning whomever I talk to and your name come up, I'm talking like Ted Biaselli, Tim Sheridan, Rob David, Griffin Newman. They've all had such like awesome things to say about you. You know, they all basically say you're just a delight and so wonderful to work with, and that, you know, you're a good egg, basically.
I'll take it, man. I think it's like, for me, it's one of those things where I love people, and one of the biggest things that I try and manifest and create in my life is just that I get to work with great people. And so I feel really lucky that almost every opportunity I've ever had, it's just the people have become friends. Like I had met Tim Sheridan before through like the comic book world, but Teddy I met for the first time when we started doing the show, and he and I have just become fast friends. And that's something that I think, especially on this show in particular, so many people have stayed friends from it and were friends before. And I think that's like, it's part of the reason why I think the show is as good as it is because that like energy and love for each other comes across on the screen. So, yeah. And I will definitely be Venmoing them all money for saying all those good things.
You know what? I think also it comes where we just feel like a giant community, you know, where the, and I'll probably get more into that, but where the creators, these creators specifically, you included, we're fans first. You know, we were all fans first. And some of us became, you know, creators of content like yourself, or people have participated, you know, with any of their kind of acting skills, or, you know, created websites, you know, and we're all part of this like large community, and it's so nice. It feels like and most of it feels like a great family. Of course, we have some.
Doesn't every family though?
Yeah, I guess some crazy uncles.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, that's been honestly is something for my entire career that I felt really lucky to have, is that, you know, I grew up reading comic books and watching animated shows. And so my whole journey has been fan first, and then, you know, getting to then play characters within that space or interview the characters in that space. And it makes it feel like a family. I mean, I remember when I had done the first like feature that I did, I played Meghan Markle in a movie. And I remember I came back to LA and it was the week of the premiere of Shazam. And so I went to that premiere and I got to walk the carpet, and I was getting to talk to so many of my friends because I had been hosting for so long. So all of the reporters on the line were people that I had gone on set visits with, and were fans of all these properties and stuff. So it's just been, I feel very lucky, and everyone's career and journey in this industry is so unique. But it feels awesome that every time I do something, it feels like I'm getting to celebrate with friends and family. Like
Yeah.
at all the levels of everything that I'm doing, which is really surreal sometimes.
And, I must say, I'm getting a little distracted here. I know I have this like massive collection behind me, but you just have one figure behind you. But how lucky are you? Look at that. Yeah. I think you mentioned at Paracon was the first time you saw that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
you
I
must
was
have flipped out.
Yeah, we were doing signings at the tables, and then somebody was like, "Hey, do you want to come see the Andra action figure? It's out on the floor." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not going to be biased, but I'm going to be biased. I think she's one of the coolest ones.
She is cool. And it
She
comes
also
with the cloak, right?
the mask and the cloak, and
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I think when you grow up watching all that stuff and being a fan of geek culture, having an action figure is something that's on the list of like, maybe one day I'll have that. And the fact that it got to be in a property where like I look back, there's a photo of me in elementary school that I did my class photo, and I'm in my like dress up clothes, but I'm holding a Mermista action figure. And for whatever reason, I was like, I don't care what anybody says. If I'm taking this photo, I'm holding this action figure from She-Ra in my picture. It's not He-Man, it's not She-Ra, it's Mermista.
I think I saw that photo somewhere. Maybe it was on the Revelation After show, or maybe it was. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? You should duplicate that photo with your Andra,
Listen, I thought about doing that, but then I was like, I couldn't. I've been trying to find, which I think I have on like a pink dress with like little hearts on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, little white hearts. And I was like, I need to get the shirt that matches, and then do it with the figure.
And then you can do it side by side.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is so cool. Like I said, I would give all of that away just, to have one of me in this property. I mean, I guess everyone can custom make one, but it must be so cool.
It's incredibly surreal, and just feels I feel lucky, and also realize like how big of a deal it is for me in the fandom, where it's like, I grew up watching these shows, and so getting to voice a character and flesh out a character's story more on the animated show and then in a comic it's exciting, but it's also like, I understand how much pressure is there because I know what the fandom is. I am that fan. So I'm like, I want to make sure that I do a good job, and that, people enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed all the things that, where it's like Tim and Teddy writing the comics and adding to that world, or all the writers on Revelation. And so there's this like balance of like excitement and also nervousness. That, it's like I said, I keep saying it, but it is very surreal to get to be creating in a world that I've been such a fan of since I was a kid.
It's gotta be, and there's something exciting because, if there's anything close to immortality, I think it's being involved with something like this, meaning one of my favorite movies of all time is Silver Linings Playbook. You ever see that movie?
Silver Linings Playbook. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But I recognize that the way other great movies like that, they tend to like fade away in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, but these franchise things, space stuff or Godzilla, King Kong, that kind of thing, that stuff seems to live forever. This genre stuff.
Yeah.
And other than that and Christmas movies, that get that replay factor, and Christmas music, that happens to be the same thing. It just doesn't go away. So it must be so exciting to be a part of something like this that seems like will outlive all of us,
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it, I've always felt like as I got older, I kind of started to flesh out why I love comic books or why I love genre so much. And I think there is something that it can be grounded, but also in this fantasy space. And you can talk about things that sometimes it's uncomfortable to talk about in real life, or explore things that are a little uncomfortable. And when you do it in a comic or in a genre space where it's like, it has such a commentary about the world and things that are going on. And whether it's to a big degree or a small degree, I think that that's part of the reason why this stuff sticks around for so long, because it's these universal feelings and experiences that people have that, when it's always going to be like dark versus light, or good versus evil, and someone coming into their own and realizing the hero that they have inside of them. Because I think that's, where it's like the the relationship between Tila and Andra on the animated show for me was so much of it as what I try to emulate with my friendships with my friends, where it's like sometimes you forget who you are or you don't want to be who you are, but you need your friends around to tell you, no, this is actually who you are. You are a badass. You do all these incredible things, and having those people around you to remind you of that, I think it's like the kind of like opposite of coming of age, where sometimes you come of age and you realize who you are, but then sometimes you lose it and you need people around you to help remind you. So it felt a lot like that's what the dynamic was on the show. And I think what I'm excited to delve into with the comic is that, you know, we're getting to see Andra kind of realizing who she really is, because you saw, I mean, spoilers, but if you watch the show, it's like, yes, she gets to become Man-at-Arms, but she wasn't Man-at-Arms before. And so it's like, how do you kind of take on that mantle knowing how heavy it could potentially be? I mean, honestly, it's like, as I was writing it, I was like, I feel like I'm Man-at-Arms right now because I'm about to write this comic book and I don't want to F it up. I'm like, but I know I can do it. I know I can do it. I know I have all the tools to do this thing. So it's fun when you get to kind of play in that world.
So let's catch everyone up. Let's jump into it, because a lot of people might not know, right? Yeah. That back in February, the exciting news broke that a comic, a one-shot, was headed our way from Dark Horse Comics, hitting shelves on July 23rd, titled Masters of the Universe, Andra. And it was like, wow, you know, not just wow because we're getting a new Motu story, which is wow, and not just wow because we're getting another Revolution in continuity story, but there was a wow because this new comic was going to be featuring the character of Andra, but it's also written by Andra, you know, meaning the person behind the voice of Andra, Tiffany Smith, from the Masters of the Universe, Revelation and Revolution Netflix shows, she was writing it, you know? So, and everyone seemed really excited about it in our community. And so now everyone's caught up. So what was the genesis of this? I mean, what was the spark of Andra?
I mean, for the comic, at first I have to say, so I woke up one morning in February, I guess it was, and I was like, oh my God, the cover's out. What's happening? I didn't know that the comic was getting announced, but I was like, somehow it had gotten out. And what was so wonderful about it was the positive response that happened. And it almost was like a blessing in disguise that it happened that way, because I didn't have the pressure of, oh my God, the press release is coming out today. Everyone's going to find out. I've seen how they're going to react. And it was just like, I woke up and it was already out and people were excited about it. And that felt amazing.
So that was me. We're going to have to admit that here. That was me, and it was already out, but there wasn't any sort of leak or anything. It just hit Diamond Comic Distributors. They have a preview website, and it hit it, I think, prematurely. And then
this is the thing, though, that makes me so excited about it, is that, like, that felt so awesome.
To see the reaction.
That everyone was so excited about it that it was like, as soon as it like dropped, it was like, we need to write about this. We need to talk about this. And that felt awesome, because in every fandom, like we said, there's sometimes the crazy uncle. And there's always that kind of piece where it's like, this is a new character. This is taking something that people have loved for so long and taking it in a different direction and fleshing out a character that is newer into the world, was in the world at the beginning, obviously with the comic, but taking her into a different space. And so there's definitely that nervousness of like, I hope that the fans accept this and are as excited about it as I am, and as Dark Horse is, and Mattel and everybody else involved. So it kind of came about because it was, I can't even remember. I think it was during the pandemic, and I hopped on a Zoom with Rob.
And early.
Yeah, towards the end. It was either then or during the strikes, and I have no concept of time anymore after the last couple of years. It was on a Zoom. Rob and I hopped on a Zoom, and we were just like catching up. And that's, like I said, everyone has just become friends if we weren't friends already before the show. So Rob, David, and I hopped on a Zoom, and we're just talking about what was going on in the industry and like what things I wanted to do. And I was like, I mean, at some point I'd really love to write a comic. And he was like, what about an Andra comic? And I was like, okay. And so at that portion of it was easy breezy, but then it was, okay, you actually have to pitch an idea. Like, what is your idea? It's not just like, go ahead, write the comic. so that was where a big piece of like, oh my God, what story do I want to tell? Like, where do I want to take her? Where do we want this to land? And once we knew that it was going to be between season one, Revolution and Revelation, and in between, I knew I had like a starting point and an ending point. So the bookends were already there. And I immediately called Tim Sheridan because Tim and I had talked with him at different points about like, oh, I would love to write a comic with someone. I feel very lucky that from the hosting jobs that I've done, you know, I've worked with a bunch of really incredible comic book creators, writers, and artists, and got to interview them and hear about their process. And so when this came up, I literally called everyone I could and was like, hey, what advice do you have? Hey, can I see a copy of one of your scripts? Like, what do I need to be doing? How do I do this process? And that it's one of those things where I joke about it, but I always say, if I've worked with someone, they're a mentor to me, whether they know it or not, like in that moment or later on. I have no problem calling someone and being like, hey, you're amazing at this. Do you have any tips?
Yeah, and they must be, both Tim and Rob must be an amazing resource because they're living in this space, right?
Yeah.
And they've walked those steps that you're now walking on.
Yeah.
And they're so talented, both of them.
Yep.
Oh.
So talented, so kind. Just,
yes.
I mean, and there definitely were calls to Tim where I was like, I don't think I can do this. And he's like, yes, you can. And to his credit, like I remember when I first started thinking about it, I was like, oh, well, I don't know if I want to write it by myself or with someone else. He's like, you're going to write it by yourself. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to write it by myself. I was like, are you sure? So, I mean, because I also have a lot of television film writer friends that they were like, I'm just going to tell you right now, you might have picked the hardest medium to start in, writing something by yourself, because reading comic books for, you know, my whole life, I know how difficult they are and how creatively amazing they are. But when you actually sit down to do it, you start to realize, okay, not only are you writing the wording script, but you're also basically director and storyboarding everything. And you can't use a ton of words because of the fact that like there's a limited amount of space on the pages. And from reading comic books, it's like, you know what makes a comic book great when you're reading it, but then when you actually sit down to try to create your own, a lot of that stuff, it's hard, man. Like, because as an actor, you know, I just get to I get to take the words and use my paintbrush in that space. But in this world, it was like, oh wait,
you have to be concerned about real estate, right?
Yeah, real estate, and then learning stuff where it's like, you know, when you read comic books, you understand how incredible a splash page can be, a 2-page spread, but you also then have to realize, okay, I need to write things in a way so it will land on the right page, so that way that splash works at the right time, that it's not 1 page off and that you've written it so where like one is on one side and one's on the back, because that doesn't work. So it's this interesting like puzzle of, this is the story I want to tell. How do I break that down? And then it's crazy because if you change one thing, you're like, well, and now I have to pull out a whole page, or I have to add in a page. So yeah, I mean, it was incredible. And I think, again, awesome to have such creative talents that are already on my team that I can ask for advice and know that they're going to tell me. Because I remember the first time when I sent the script to a friend or two, I was like, just tell me if this is like a 5-year-old wrote this. Or, like, you know, and fortunately they were like, Tiffany, no, this is good. I was like, okay, good. Whew. But when you're doing something for the first time, there's that fear there that like, I know what this medium is and I know good writers, and like, I don't know what is going to come out when I do this. But I remember one of the best pieces of advice that Tim gave me was just sit and write. Just write it, Tiffany. You can change it. It's not like when you have written it that's the end. And so it's like, I think being a perfectionist, it's sometimes you just have to write things down. It's not going to be perfect, and you can keep shifting it and changing it and working on it along the way. And extra lucky if you have wonderful people around you where it's like, you know, the artists.
I just love this group because Teddy's the one that helped Tim, you know, and Tim sent his writing samples and stuff to Teddy and said, you know, I'm not looking, you know, to sugarcoat anything. Give me your, you know, your tips and your secrets. And now he's doing the same thing for you, because this is a new like foray for yourself. And it's just, It's just so nuts. It's just, I love this. I love this group of people. I love it so much. So do you, I mean, did you ever consider being a writer before? Not just for comics, but I think you wrote something or something coming up. But was this ever like a possibility for you? Like,
I think I've always had creative ideas, but sitting down and writing a script or something from start to finish, I'd never done. I write poetry, but I had always loved comics, and so there was always that thing on the bottom of the list that's like, one day I would love to write a comic. One day I would love to do this thing.
Bucket list.
I could never have imagined that it would be something where it's like, my first comic is with Dark Horse, where I've read so many wonderful comics that they've put out, and that I would get to work with an artist that I love her work. And that it would just be, I would get to talk to fans of a property, that it would get to be part of the Motu world. I didn't, sometimes you put things out into the universe and you're like, I would love to do this. And it's like, it's going to show up in a way better way than I could ever have imagined. And sometimes you just have to pinch yourself, where it's like, I couldn't have written this down in a journal years ago and been like, one day I'm going to write write a comic in the Motu world about a character that didn't really exist a ton before. She did in the comics a little. But yeah, I couldn't have imagined it. And, my mom jokes with me that that childhood photo of me, she's like, you manifested all of this since then. You like, little you knew to sit in that photo with the action figures. She's like, and then here you are doing the voice on the show. You get to talk about that you took this photo. And I'm like, did future me like travel back in time? I don't know.
There's sometimes there's something to that, I wonder, Oh, and then you getting linked up with, I'm probably going to mess up her last name. Adriana Milo, I think.
Adriana Miller. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. She's such a good artist. And she, you know what? Do you know if she's a fan? Because I think she's around, our ages, and she's Brazilian, and Motu is big in Brazil,
what was awesome is that, writing a comic for your first time and being an actor doing it, I think I'm lucky because people in the comic book space knew who I was from, being a geek host and stuff. So it wasn't like I just stepped into this world of comics not having experience at some level in it. And so I feel like I was really lucky that, the artists that we approached about stuff were excited about the property. And I feel like maybe the fact that my enthusiasm was so amped up about the book. But yeah, when we got the yes from Adriana, I was blown away and so excited, because part of my thing was, and this is just stuff that you learn as you're writing comics, I think, that, every single relationship between a writer and artist is so different for every book. Yeah. Sometimes it's the panels are totally written out like exactly how you want the artist to do it. And for me, I was very much like, I kind of looked at it as my artist is kind of like the director along with me, where it's like, I'm going to write things down, but then I want your input on it. Like, especially because I'm getting to work with artists that are so much more veteran than I am as a comic book writer. And so it's just been mind blowing to get to sit with the script words that I have and look at the stuff that has been coming in from Adriana. And, I'm hopeful that we're going to actually get to be at a convention and do some signings together, because like you said, she's from Brazil and traveling all over the place. But I'm like, I know, fingers crossed, San Diego Comic-Con is like my Christmas and birthday, everything rolled into one. So hoping that we'll get to be there, and I'll be there doing some stuff this year. But I would love to be able to actually sit and enjoy that, because I know it's one of those things where, as much as I wrote, it's a collaborative art, just like so many other things. And it's because of the incredible talent that's involved from every level, like everyone at Dark Horse who's helping me to set up these interviews, and Mattel, and, who's involved that wants the book to be successful, and is supporting me along the way. It's such a collaboration across the board. So I'm just excited for all the moments where we get to celebrate the wins along the way.
Yeah. Okay. So why a one shot? Instead of, Dark Horse tends to do, especially with Motu, the 4-issue series. Mm-hmm. So was this just to get your toes wet, or?
I mean, I think what I don't know how. I actually am like, I don't remember having the conversation of like, did we want to do a series or if it was just a one shot from the beginning. But I think the story that I wanted to tell lent itself really well to a one shot. Like I said, especially because it happened in between the two seasons of the show. And for me, it really was like the great part about it. It is me getting my toes wet, kind of like dipping my toe in and being like, okay, this is not like a monthly comic that's coming out for 6 months and I need to like have a big, large idea of where this is going and how, I mean, obviously I did have to have an idea where it was going. But it was one story and it was very contained. And so I think for me felt a little less intimidating than trying to tell a story that might have come out in a monthly. But I will say that I definitely feel way more inspired and confident now that it's like, what do I want to do next? What's next? Where do I want to try out next?
Yeah, because they usually need more than one comic for a trade, a trade paperback. So
yeah.
So maybe if this goes well and you've had a great experience.
When this goes well,
we're going to make sure it goes well. There's so many people out there, Tiffany, that just love this show. I know you heard some of the loudest voices, but there's running this website, there's a huge silent majority that just loved Revelation. And then Revolution, anyone who kind of was like cold on Revelation, even though that's my favorite out of the two.
Yeah.
They seemed like everyone, it was a consensus that everyone thought Revolution was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite out of the two? I know it's like picking a child, but do you have a favorite out of the two?
Honestly, the first episode of the second season where she's Man-at-Arms and comes in the mech suit, like that was huge for me. But all like it's the first episodes of both seasons for me, I think. Because not the first episode, the first time we see ANDRA, I think was
the second episode, right?
Yeah. But then her and Tila coming in the masks and the cloak and just kind of having that like funny banter as mercenaries, like those two moments for me stand out. And the crazy thing I think was that I remember when the first season came out, I like held off until a Saturday morning and I was like, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to have cereal and I'm going to watch on a Saturday morning. And as an actor, when it's live action, it's really hard. I will usually watch my stuff once and then so that I can learn from it. And then I'm like, I don't really need to watch it again. Because it's hard to watch yourself. But doing the animation voiceover, it was so cool because yes, it's my voice, but like, it was a lot easier to separate me from it and just watch and enjoy it. And as a fan, I'm like, like reading the episodes. I loved every single one. So getting to see it all come together, I was blown away. And then as a fan where you're like, freaking Mark Hamill's doing the voice? Like what? And then it's like, then you get
Hetty as Evelyn. I mean, how perfect is that? I would have cast her as Evelyn in real life, you know?
Yeah.
And you got to meet so many of those people because I know Teddy had a cast party or some kind of party for Revelation, I think.
Yeah.
Afterwards. And was Mark there?
Mark was not at that one. But I think the highlight of stuff, I mean, obviously there were so many highlights along the way, but when the announcement for season 2 was coming and, I've been going to Comic-Con for a very long time. And I've gotten to be lucky enough to be in some Hall H panels, but getting to walk out onto the stage for a Hall H panel about Masters of the Universe and having the surprise of William Shatner coming out was so mind-blowing. Just like, it was crazy. And having Kevin Smith moderating the panel and Rob David on the panel, it was so surreal and wonderful. I think those for me are like the moments that stand out where it's like the episodes are amazing. And there's too many good moments to pick from that I'm like, but that one for me, being a geek growing up, being on a panel in Hall H, getting to talk about a franchise that I love was incredible.
William Shatner is so amazing. And he's someone I think we all inspire to, where he's just he's in his 90s and he hasn't lost a step, He's just, he kind of reminds me, rest her soul, Betty White, who passed away at 99. She was another one that she was still funny and entertaining in her 90s. And I finally got to meet William Shatner last year. I think I was the first one to show him the Keldor figure. Everyone was showing up with Star Trek figures. And then here I am with this little blue guy for him to sign it, And I asked him if he would do a sequel, and he told me if Kevin Smith asked, and he was programmed, like he was sign, move away, right? And when I asked him that, he suddenly stopped and he said, "Hey, after signing, can you show me that again?" And I'm like, "Sure, here." And I actually brought two, and I was like, "Bill, if you want one, you can have one." Because how cool is that? Just to say, I gave William Shatner an action figure. But so he stared at it for like 2 minutes, asking me questions. So it seemed like at least it was the first time he ever saw it. Oh, so nice and so polite and so talented. So with the comic, real quick, you did mention it was a sequel to Revelation and a prequel to Revolution, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going to be vague here, but according to the synopsis, it mentions that ANDRA will have to delve into her past, which I'm excited about. Mm-hmm. Without spoiling anything, it seems like we're going to be able to learn a lot more about ANDRA pre-apocalyptic, all the magic on Eternia is gone, where audiences first kind of met her. And so we're going to learn maybe...
we will definitely get into her past a little bit more. I think for me, the cool thing about and one-shots, especially like this and in this world, is like you get to spend a lot more time with one character. You get to see what's going on in their life and what made them who they are. And I think, like I talked about a little bit earlier, the animated show, so much of it was about ANDRA kind of being the audience's eyes into this world that, like, yes, she knows about it, but the excitement level is at a 10 when everything's happening. And her getting to meet people and just walk into spaces, and her being that reflection kind of for Tila to be like, no, this is who you are, and I'm still here, and I will support you in whatever you're doing, but also you are a hero, and that's what I want to be. And then I think what we get to explore in this one is it's more about ANDRA's journey, and it's more about how does she hold the mantle of Man-at-Arms now that she is Man-at-Arms? What does that look like? What does she have to do in that space? Because I think when you're watching the first season, so much of that is like, she wants to be accepted into this family. And once she does get accepted, it's like, okay, well, now what? And that's what I loved about, getting to explore that space is that, like I said, we had the bookends. I knew where she was going to land. And so it was like, okay, where can we play in the space in between that? And then I sat down and got out my Motu encyclopedia of characters and was like, who can I play with? Which can I bring in? Ooh, can I do these vehicles? Or what can I do here?
Is that how Count Marzo came into the picture?
So Count Marzo, a little bit of that, but also like, I love the magic of the world. Like, so having a character that, like, in some ways, he kind of reminds me of like Zatanna's dad.
Wait, who?
Zatanna from the DC Comics.
Oh,
he's like a sorcerer, sorcerer supreme kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And so getting to kind of delve into that world, and there's stuff about him obviously that it was cool again, because I do think, as hard as it is sometimes, getting to have the boundaries and like the world kind of built already a little bit, where it's like, okay, I know that he is in this space and I know that he can do these things and this thing here, but also like I'm allowed to like push it a little bit and like explore it a little bit more. And when it's magic, it's like nobody can tell you no, the magic can't do that. I'm like, but it's magic. So yeah, I mean, getting to have some fun with the stuff that I already knew about Count Marzo and bring him into this world. I'm excited for everybody to read. And like, for me, it's always, I think, reading comics and watching cartoons, you're always like, the hero is kind of only as good as the villain. So, or what they're up against. And in this case, having it be Count Marzo is super awesome. And I hope that, the journey is as exciting for everyone else, and like the reveals and all that stuff. I'm like, it's so hard because I'm like, I want to talk about everything.
I know.
I mean, for the longest time, I couldn't even say that I was writing the book, and so now it's like I can say I wrote the book, and now it's like, oh, don't tell them too much, Tiffany.
Well, Count Marzo was in the synopsis,
Yes,
and I think a lot of people got excited because he not only debuted in the Filmation cartoon in 1983, but then reappeared in the 2000 X series, and was a big part of that. And yeah, I think everyone was so excited about that, and just so excited about. I mean, with you coming, I mean, how amazing, or maybe it's not. I don't know how. meaning, you're writing a character that you previously played on television. So, is it? When you write for her, is it simpler? I mean, it must be simpler, right? Like, meaning when you go in there and you're like, I got this. I know this character, Or
I mean, what was really lucky for me on this, and just kind of where sometimes you're just like, everything just works out in a way that like you couldn't have imagined, like I said before, where you just can't imagine it. But I remember when I went in to do one of the first or second session, and Kevin Smith was just like, Andra's you, but like amped up. And so sometimes you'll submit for a voiceover audition and you do a certain voice, and then you get into the booth and you book the job, and they're like, okay, but actually we want you to do like add some of this, do some of this kind of thing. And for Andra, it was just, I got to do what I did in the original audition. And so it was like he said, it's me, but amplified. And I got to like enjoy the fandom that I have for Motu through this character. So then getting to write the comic book, I was like, I mean, all of those writers know Andra with the voice really well, but I have a unique experience with the character because, I do have a lot of experience now being her, and the fact that it was like, it ended up being like a mix of me and the things that they were doing with the character to begin with. Because I remember we were doing some of the voice recording, and Powerhouse, the animation studio that did the show, was just so insanely talented. But we were doing a voiceover session, and I was seeing some of the animatics, and I was like, wait, is she like, because I just had done this like weird, however I stand or whatever I was doing in the booth, and the animatic was doing the same thing. And it was not like it wasn't like screen cap or anything. They weren't like motion capturing anything. And I was just like, did you guys from all the sessions like kind of start putting some of my body language in there? And they were like, yeah. And so that part was so cool, because it was like I knew at that point where it's like, sometimes people will tell you like, oh yeah, you're the character. But then when you start to see the other creatives being like, oh yeah, no, she really does embody this in a lot of ways. So that I think also added to a confidence level of like, great, I can do this. I do know her voice in a unique way. And yeah, there were times where it was like, I rewatched obviously Revelation. I've watched it a bunch of times now, but rewatched just so that I could like remember all the other characters' voices and have them just like playing in my head, because Andra's is obviously the most common for me. But where it's like, in my mind, it was like, well, Count Marzo definitely doesn't talk like Andra does. So how do I kind of bring that voice out? And I think being a voice actor helps when you're writing a comic, because I can kind of dip in and out in my mind of these different voices, especially because they're a little bit more, for me at least, they're a little bit bigger than what you normally see on TV and film. So I could have like a more fleshed out, bigger idea of who each character was as I was writing them.
I remember when Tim was writing for Scareglow, he said that he would like do uppercase, lowercase for every word.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. It's such a cool idea. But you know what, Tiffany, I mean, you've joined a unique club. I mean, because if you think about it, it's a club of like talent who has voice acted and Masters of the Universe Revelation and Revolution and written for the universe. I mean, you got Ted Biselli,
yep,
who played Gwildor and did the Masters of the Universe Revolution prequel comics. You got Tim Sheridan, who did King Miro, and the Revolution prequel comics, and now both shows and this Andra comic. So, and I can't be honest with you. Can you remember a time you're a comic fan that has happened outside of Masters of the Universe, Revelation, and Revolution, where actors have done that? I mean, I believe we had someone in our community forum, Mr. Hootie Dean. I think he said there were some actors from that show Buffy the Vampire Slayer that also like wrote some comics. But other than that, it seems it's probably rare.
There's a writer in the DC space, and I think the character's name is Dream. I can't remember. She was a character on Supergirl, I think. But they're writing a comic, which it's not common. That's the thing, especially ones where the actor is writing solo. A lot of times you get to see, because it's like an intimidating and scary space if you don't know the world. And I think part of what is so cool is that just because of the uniqueness of my career journey, I've gotten to be on that side of comic books and seeing creators work on books and do the press tours for the books and interviewing them for stuff at conventions, and then talking to artists who worked on different books and how this one came about. And so, I hosted a show that was about writing comic books before I even realized that, like, I'm going to do this in the future. So I think I have, for me at least, it feels like a unique journey to get here that was kind of giving me all the tools that I would need before I even knew that I needed them. And so, yeah, I think it's great if there's more creatives that, get to explore different mediums for the characters that they get to play. I mean, I think a big part of it for me too was that though the last couple of years have been crazy for the industry, it also opened up space to get to try and explore different spaces of my creativity where, if we'd had like a normal pilot season and it was busy with auditions and stuff, I think it would have been a lot harder for me to sit down and write my first comic. And now that I have that one under my belt, I'm like, oh, okay, like it's always, for me at least, always harder when you try something for the first time. And then once you do it a couple times, you're like, okay, it's not easy, but at least I know a little bit more of the process and it doesn't feel so foreign. Yeah. And same thing where it's like, I've gotten to do theater and stuff, which I don't know that I would have had the space to do. So I always, being the like good egg, as some very kind people have said, I think I do generally try and look for the silver lining in things. And if this is a silver lining of some harder times, I am so freaking thankful. And like, it's incredible.
I agree. And it's a great club to be in. Should we have included Kevin Smith and Rob David, because they are in Revelation doing some battles in the background.
Yeah.
But they don't have a speaking. I don't know.
I mean, it's a family. The whole thing is a family. I mean, that's where
it is.
It takes everyone. And I mean, the comic book that I get to do wouldn't have happened if Kevin hadn't come on board and wanted to do this character. And same with Rob, where it's like, I think sometimes all you need is someone to encourage you to say, yeah, you can do that thing, to be able to like step out and actually try it. And then to be encouraged because you actually did the thing based off your talent. Like that's one thing where I always feel really, really wonderful, because so when I auditioned to voice Andra, I knew Kevin from hosting. We'd done some stuff with DC and had hosted some TV film stuff together. And so the audition came in and I was like, oh my gosh, this is Kevin's show. Like, I want to just audition and have it be off of just the voice that I do, submitting that. And obviously I took like forever to do it because I kept redoing it. So I submit it, send it in. And then I don't remember if it was him that called me or my agent called first and was like, so Andra, do you want to do it? And I was like, And later I was talking with Kevin and I remember him telling me, he was like, just so you know, like Mattel brought your voice take to me. It was not like, I did not say that I know Tiffany. And so he's like, once I heard it, I was like, yeah. And then I just learned this yesterday, or no, last Friday, I guess. Teddy and I were talking and he's like, I'm the like, I was like the final line of like who got cast for things once it got to Netflix. And he was like, Teddy and I didn't know each other. And so he was like, I heard yours. And I was like, yes. like no question. And so for me, that's something where it's like, it's really wonderful to have great friends in the industry at all different levels. But it's the most special when, you know, you feel like, oh, I booked this based off of my talent. And then on top of that, I got to work with my friends, which feels really special.
Yeah. What a support system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know we have to wrap this up, and we're going to remind everyone about the comic one more time, but, you know, Tiffany, it's great that to have people like yourself, great personalities in front of this brand, pushing the brand, driving new content, outreaching to the community, right? Because it is a community that you were already a part of when you were younger.
Yeah.
Teddy, Tim, Rob, you know, you all started originally as fans too, just like us. One of us, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
And it creates this kinship, which is just so great. And I just love that you're doing this. And so yeah, let's remind everyone about this comic. The Masters of the Universe ANDRA one-shot comic has a street date of July 23rd. But you need to reach out to your comic stores before that. Your local comic book shops place orders ahead of time based on customer demand. And we have, what was the cutoff, June 16th?
Yep, June 16th.
June 16th. So before June 16th, you have to let your comic shop know. You know, if you're a lover of Masters of the Universe Revelation, of Revolution, you need to let your source, you need to let your comic shop know that you're interested, to reserve your copy, reserve multiple copies, because there will be 3 covers to choose from. One main one.
We put out 2 covers. We have one main, one variant, and we have another variant coming out soonish, I think. So keep your eyes peeled. I'll be posting it. Dark Horse, we'll all share it all over all of our social platforms once we're ready. Right.
Once we're ready. I'm going to let you guys do that.
Oh, I wasn't even saying it like that.
But have them put, you know, have these comic book shops, you know, support your comic book shops, but have them put it on their pull list for you. Because this time you can't wait for the trade paperback, because there won't be a trade paperback, at least not at first. Maybe hopefully one day down the road with an omnibus, there'll be a Revolution continuity omnibus, or maybe there'll be more one shots, you know, that Tiffany or even other people, or maybe, you know, maybe there'll be someone else that wants to do a one shot, and they'll reach out to Tiffany and say, hey, can I have your advice? You know? And the dominoes will continue to fall in a wonderful way. And so this is a one-shot comic, and you don't want to miss out this latest exciting entry to this exciting universe. So make sure you reserve your copy of ANDRA ASAP. The more the better.
Yeah, and keep posted on social media. You guys can find me on Instagram. It's at Tiffany_Smith. We're going to be figuring out some signings and some places that you guys can maybe come say hi along the way. Because like I said, part of the awesomeness of all of this is that I'm actually getting to spend time and getting to meet more of the community. Because I think, you know, when the shows came out, it was during the pandemic and everyone was so separated. And so now I'm really excited to get to kind of dive back in and see some people in person and sign some comics.
Yeah. You know, that reminds me, real quick, I feel so bad for Griffin. I think like during Revelation, there was the pandemic, and he was going to do something at a Comic-Con, and they canceled it. And then Revolution, he was going to be like on a panel, and then the strike happened, so he couldn't participate. You know, like they went on strike the week before, and I was like, oh, this poor guy. But he did finally get to do something, I think, last year.
Yeah. Yeah, and we went to the PowerCon together. I can't remember which year it was, but he and I got to go to PowerCon together, and that was after the first season had aired. And I have to say, it was like everyone was so supportive and so wonderful, and it was so much fun. And you know, we got to sit at our table and do signings and pictures, and then we got to do a panel, and it was the community and the fans around Motu are so awesome. Like, I'm so lucky to get to be a part of this world.
Yeah. Well said. So Tiffany, do you have anything else you'd like to touch upon or add that we haven't addressed yet before we sign off?
Rewatch Revolution Revelation on Netflix. It's on there. There's DVD hard copies coming out soon, so keep your eyes open for that too. And then, like you said, pre-order the ANDRA comic book at your local comic shop. Call and pick up a ton of them. Pick up at least 3 because you're going to want those different variant covers. And then, like I said, follow me on social. I'm about to head to London in about a month or so to go do a play. So if you're in London and want to come see some theater, come check that out. It's called Water Party. And then I'm in the process of producing and co-created a feature called Deepest Darkest. And we started filming and we just finished filming with Rosario Dawson and Ernie Hudson. So keep your eyes peeled for all that good stuff. I try and keep everyone up to date with everything on social media. So that way everyone can keep track, myself included, because half the time I'm like, wait, what am I doing?
I can't wait for Deepest Darkest. And you'll be in London. You know, they're filming the movie out there, Masters of the Universe, the live action.
Really?
Movie. Yeah, it's being filmed in London. So, you know, maybe take a left turn and head on over there. Tell them who you are. And
I mean, listen, I would do the mohawk. I would do the new ANDRA hair to get to play live action ANDRA.
That's awesome. All right. So we want to thank Tiffany for being on today. Thank you so much. It has been such an honor to have you on, and thank you for pouring your heart and soul into this amazing fandom. Appreciate that. Extremely
so
great.
Excited to do it. I'm so excited, and I can't wait for everybody to get to read the book and be able to talk more in detail about what happens in it once everyone's read it.
Yeah, you're welcome to come back at any time. If you want to come back and have something come out like the day it releases, to force people to run out to the comic book shop and buy extra copies. Open invitation.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I want to thank you all out there also for listening to this podcast. If you enjoy this show, please show us your support by subscribing to our streams, our channel, and please always give a comment if you can, below. And you can also drop us a line by sending an email to foreternia@gmail.com. We do love the feedback. And as always, visit us at foreternia.com for all the latest updates and news that can help you stay up to date with all the Masters of the Universe content. So that's it. We would like to thank you all for listening, and let the power return. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.